Max Mayfield's story in Stranger Things can be understood as a very human story about depression, grief, and emotional isolation, and the so-called Vecna curse is not just a supernatural attack but a powerful way to show what deep depression can feel like from the inside. After Billy's death, Max is no longer the loud, sarcastic, fearless girl she used to be. She becomes quiet, distant, and emotionally closed off, and this change is the foundation of how depression begins to show itself in her life. Max loses someone who was complicated, sometimes cruel, but still deeply connected to her, and because that relationship was never simple, her grief becomes tangled with guilt, anger, and confusion. Depression often grows in situations like this, where feelings are unresolved and painful thoughts have nowhere to go. Max starts pulling away from her friends, not because she doesn't care, but because depression makes connection feel exhausting and pointless. She stops answering letters, avoids conversations, and emotionally disappears even when she is physically present. This mirrors how many people with depression feel like a burden to others or believe that no one could truly understand what they are going through, so isolation feels safer than trying to explain the pain. The Vecna curse enters Max's life by targeting these exact emotions, feeding on her sadness, self-blame, and sense of emptiness. Vecna does not randomly choose victims, he chooses people who are already drowning in emotional pain. Which is why Max becomes such a strong target. His hallucinations, nightmares, and intrusive memories reflect how depression often traps people inside their own minds, replaying traumatic moments again and again without relief. Max constantly relives Billy's death, hearing his voice and seeing his face, which is similar to how depression can cause intrusive thoughts that feel uncontrollable and cruel. These thoughts are not chosen, yet they feel deeply personal, convincing the person that they deserve the pain. Max believes she should have done more to save Billy, even though logically she could not have stopped what happened, and this self-blame is a classic symptom of depression. The curse makes this internal struggle visible by turning her emotional pain into a literal monster that stalks her when she is alone, quiet, and vulnerable. Vecna's presence grows stronger when Max isolates herself, showing how depression often worsens in silence. When Max sits alone at the graveyard listening to music, it is not just a sad moment, it is a coping attempt. Music becomes her only emotional lifeline, something familiar that allows her to feel without speaking. Depression often pushes people toward private coping methods because social ones feel too difficult. Max's emotional numbness is also important, as she struggles to cry openly or express her pain to her friends, instead writing letters she believes will only be read after her death. Writing goodbye letters is a serious sign of how hopeless she feels, as depression convinces her that her life may not continue and that the people she loves would be better off without her. The curse feeds on this hopelessness, blurring the line between her mental state and the supernatural danger she faces. When Vecna pulls Max into his mind space, it feels like a deep depressive episode where reality fades and dark thoughts become overwhelming. The empty, broken landscape represents her inner world, stripped of joy, color, and safety. Max running through this space while reliving trauma mirrors the way people with depression often feel trapped in cycles of fear and sadness, constantly trying to escape their own thoughts. Her physical symptoms during the curse, like dissociation, blank staring, and loss of awareness, resemble how depression can cause people to feel disconnected from their bodies and surroundings. The most powerful part of Max's story is that her survival does not come from fighting Vecna with strength or anger, but from emotional connection. When her friends speak to her, remind her she is loved, and refuse to give up on her, it creates a bridge back to reality. Depression tells people they are alone, but Max's rescue proves that connection can interrupt that lie. Her favorite song becomes a grounding tool, symbolizing how personal meaning can pull someone out of a dark mental space, even temporarily. However, the story does not pretend that surviving one moment means healing is complete. Even after escaping Vecna, Max remains deeply affected, showing that depression does not simply disappear after one breakthrough. The damage lingers, and recovery is slow, painful, and uncertain. Max's injuries and coma later on can be read as the long-term consequences of untreated emotional trauma, reminding viewers that mental suffering has real physical effects. Her silence at the end is especially important, as it shows how depression can leave a person feeling empty even after surviving the worst moment. The Vecna curse, in this sense, is not defeated once and for all, just like depression often requires ongoing support rather than a single heroic moment. Max's character teaches that depression does not always look dramatic or obvious, but can appear as quiet withdrawal, emotional shutdown, and deep self-blame. Her story treats mental illness with seriousness by showing how dangerous it can become when ignored. At the same time, it offers hope by showing that empathy, presence, and emotional honesty matter. Max does not need to be fixed or rushed into happiness, she needs to be seen, heard, and held in her pain. The supernatural horror of Vecna works because it is rooted in a very real emotional truth that depression feels like something hunting you from the inside, waiting for moments of weakness. By turning that feeling into a monster, the show allows viewers to understand the invisible battle Max is fighting. In the end, Max Mayfield's Vecna curse is a powerful metaphor for depression itself, showing how grief, guilt, isolation, and hopelessness can slowly pull someone toward the edge, and how survival often depends not on strength alone, but on connection, compassion, and the courage to let others in, even when the darkness feels louder than everything else.